Hello, everyone. Welcome. Good morning to those of you on the West Coast of North America, and good afternoon or evening to you if you're in other parts of the world. Really especially wonderful to see all of you joining today. You may have experienced a little glitch in the platform as you were trying to join right at the top of the hour. Thankfully, the admins on the Crowdcast platform were able to get that addressed within just a couple of minutes. So all it took was a refresh. So really glad that you stuck with us and that you're all here. For those of you who may be joining us for the first time, just wanted to let you know a little bit about Sangha Live. My name is Amy Jacob, and I'm one of the co-founders of this platform. And we've been providing weekly Sunday Dharma sessions, which includes guided meditation and Dharma talks from various renowned teachers throughout the world. So that's been happening consistently for the last 5 years, each Sunday. And we also offer in-depth courses, which are available on the platform as well, to dive a little bit deeper into specific topics. So if you're curious and want to access a lot of very freely available content, you can take a look at the Dharma library in the upper menu of the website and view a lot of really amazing talks there, including many from Caverly, who's our teacher this morning. So before I turn it over to Caverly, let me just say one other thing about the way that we're offering these teachings. That goes for the weekly Sunday Sangha offerings, as well as these daily meditation sessions. And that it's all offered on the basis of dana, or generosity. And we are more than happy to support all of you in your practice, especially at this very challenging time of uncertainty and stress and anxiety. And in order for us to continue offering that support, we need to be supported as well in order to pay for the various platform costs and staff costs, and also to be able to offer financial assistance to the teachers who are coming and generating, offering their time very generously as well. And I want to mention again, I've mentioned this before this week, we're very aware that not everyone is in a position, especially during this time, to be able to offer a financial contribution. So just being here, just saying hello in the chat window, just sharing your greetings and letting us know that we're here together is also a form of support. And to those of you who can, who do have the means to offer a financial contribution, all you need to do is click on the green button just beneath the video window here, and that will take you to a page where you can make a donation. So I just want to thank you in advance. Thank you for those who've been contributing already this week. It really is a great support for the platform and allows us to continue offering these teachings. So I'd love to give a little introduction to Caverly Morgan, who has been extremely generous with her time this week, and I'm extremely pleased that she's going to continue with us next week as well. So same time, same place every morning for the West Coast. She'll be with us. Caverly has been a dear friend and teacher on our platform, and she is the founder and guiding teacher of Peace in Schools, a nonprofit out of Portland, Oregon, whose role is to offer mindfulness classes to public high schools in the US, which one of the first organizations really making that kind of headway into the public school system. So it's really amazing the work they're doing. And she's also the founder and guiding teacher of Presence Collective, a nonprofit that offers teaching and wisdom, offers wisdom teachings to the world as well. So I'm so pleased to bring Caverly onto the screen. See if I can turn her video on. Thanks so much, Caverly, for being with us. So great to see you.
Thank you, Jake. Thank you so much.
Pleasure being with you. I'll turn it over to you. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Friends, thank you again for your patience. I appreciated that Lynn mentioned, good time for patience. It's true. Good time to be practicing patience. We have to be practicing patience right now. Patience, such an important virtue in the face of uncertainty. I will begin by acknowledging how much I've loved coming together in this way. I yesterday found myself thinking of this community with such fondness, really sitting with, and what will our conversation tomorrow bring? We ended yesterday with someone asking a question about the conditioned mind. And I really appreciated that person bringing forward the question. It was at the very end, so I apologize. I can't remember who typed that in. Based on what time it is, and many people I know fit this sit-in and then go to work. So I would like to go ahead and begin the meditation, but just know that through the meditation, I'm going to be saying a little bit about the conditioned mind. Wanting to weave in understanding teachings about the conditioned mind. And so I'd love that as we move into this meditation, if you just type something into the sidebar, not required, but if you feel inspired to, type something in the sidebar about what does the conditioned mind mean to you? If I'm referring to the conditioned mind, what does that mean to you? How would you describe or define the conditioned mind? Ego, reflex, stuck to patterns. Fear, old patterns of knowing. Autopilot, limitation, control, normal paths we travel, delusion, monkey mind, the inner critic, fear, habitual reaction shaped by experience, my habits, beliefs, opinions that I've picked up, falling back into unhelpful patterns of thinking. Okay, so we'll have a silent meditation today because the definition of the conditioned mind is in the sidebar. What we've been taught is true in the past. Lovely. Okay, so I'm going to expand upon this theme a little bit, but I really appreciate drawing from the wisdom in the group, and this is such a wonderful way to describe what I'm referring to when I talk about the conditioned mind, the stories we tell, not traveling lightly. Yeah. Social, familial orientation, everything that's not this fresh presence. Okay, we shall sit. Thank you, friends. I'm so glad you're here. Thank you for showing up to practice today, and thank you for being in community in this way. Especially in times like these. It can be helpful to begin your meditation practice by grounding in some way, to really feel your seat. To bring attention to your feet. To allow the breath to move all the way through the body, to simply notice if it's somewhere up by the collarbones. Without force or strain, to simply allow it to drop and to release. Freeing the belly. And now bring attention to the activity of the conditioned mind. I've found myself at times referring to the conditioned mind as I, me, my mind. That point that the point that sees itself as the center of the universe from an egoic perspective. Self-referencing. In our work with teens through Peace in Schools, we talk about the conditioned mind as the mind of scarcity, the mind of limitation. The mind that sees everything through the lens of duality. Right, wrong, good, bad, this, that. Attend now to the activity of the conditioned mind. Other language I use for this is notice your self-talk. Self-talk is revealing the activity of the conditioned mind. I don't want to be here. I'd rather be in bed. I love spring. Why can't spring last longer? I can't appreciate spring because we're in the middle of a pandemic. You should be more grateful. All of that is activity of the conditioned mind. The conditioned mind is not bad or wrong. one way we could speak about it is that it's actually just a modulation of consciousness, that expansive, infinite, pure consciousness assumes the limitations of the conditioned mind. In order to know the world. So in its very definition, the conditioned mind is limited. Consciousness has to assume that limitation in order to know the world. So the nature of the conditioned mind is subject-object relationship. If we are completely identified with the conditioned mind, we perceive ourselves as separate. We experience ourselves as separate. We see ourselves as that I, me, my mind. When we're identified in that way, we experience suffering. Suffering is the byproduct of that perception that we are separate. In Zen practice, there's tremendous focus on discernment. One of the things we're discerning is the difference between the conditioned mind and pure awareness. The difference between the ego and true nature. So it's incredibly helpful that in our meditation and our practice at large, we can bring non-judgmental, open, compassionate awareness to the activity of the conditioned mind, in seeing it for what it is, in seeing, recognizing the activity of the conditioned mind as simply a modulation of consciousness. As simply activity in the mind. We learn to recognize that that activity is not who we are. What we are unconscious to silently governs us. So if we don't see that activity, if we believe we are that activity, then that activity calls the shots, if you will. Is at the driver's wheel. Someone on the sidebar wrote, reflex. Notice what reflexive, automated, habituated thoughts have been arising in response, for example, to the pandemic we're in the midst of. Again, it's the mind of fear, the mind of limitation, the mind of resistance. So simply notice now, what is the conditioned mind up to? Perhaps it's very quiet. Perhaps it's very loud. There's no right or wrong here. Just notice. Whatever conditioned thoughts might be passing through, simply notice you are not those thoughts. Rest in that recognition. Many of you are familiar with the practice of labeling thoughts during meditation. A thought goes through, oh, future. Come back to the moment. Oh, past. Come back to the moment. You might spend some time as you explore the conditioned mind, allowing it to be even more general, just noticing, oh, conditioned mind. Conditioned mind. That allows us to recognize, to name the recognition The thoughts of past, thoughts of future, two sides of the same coin. It allows us to soften the focus on what the content of the conditioned mind is and to recognize the activity itself as all simply activity of the same conditioned mind. Again, not bad, not wrong. Simply activity that if we identify with, we suffer. If we identify completely with the conditioned mind, we suffer because we see ourselves as that which is limited. We experience ourselves as separate. We forget who we actually are. Notice how the conditioned mind doesn't simply take form through thought, the activity of the conditioned mind includes energetic states, includes emotion. All of that is part of the same activity, the same patterning, the same process. Notice that that activity appears I'm going to pause and reframe so that it's an experience of inquiry. Where does this conditioned activity appear? What do you notice? Explore your direct experience. This isn't an intellectual question to be thought about. Simply notice, where does this conditioned activity appear? Simply notice as we move into silence for the remainder of this meditation. Friends, thank you. Take a moment to stretch. Perhaps open the arms and stretch the neck. This is the moment in which I am reminded that these things can't exist without our shared support. There's the donate button. Please do use it as you are able. As I've been mentioning, if during these times you are unable to support this platform financially, we do understand. But if you can support it, it truly can't exist without community support, the expression of love coming through the form of financial support. So thank you for donating as you're able to Sangha Live so that we can continue. And given today, the theme is the conditioned mind. Notice your conditioning around money, around giving, around around money at large. We're deeply conditioned to have a lot going on for us around money, most of us. So friends, let's open it up. Let's chat a bit about the conditioned mind. I saw one question pop up during the meditation, which you might have noticed I wove in a bit. How do you manage the emotions that come with the conditioned mind? So I hadn't mentioned emotions, but I brought emotions into it because it is true. It's important to recognize when I'm referring to the conditioned mind, I'm not just referring to thought form alone. I'm referring to all the ways that the conditioned mind manifests: perception, thought, conditioned belief, conditioned assumption, emotion that's attached to those beliefs and assumptions. For example, there's sensation. The conditioned mind is what interprets sensation, places sensation. Oh, that sensation's in my chest. That sensation means this. Yeah. So this question of how do you manage the emotions that come with the conditioned mind, especially if the emotion is easier to recognize than the thought. In the same way that we don't have to manage thoughts, we don't have to manage emotions. We are not that which has to manage, has to control, has to adjust these conditioned experiences, these conditioned thoughts. We don't have to manage the conditioned thoughts. We don't have to manage our habitual emotional reactions to the thoughts. Because not only are we not the thoughts, we are also not that which is trying to control the thoughts. We are not the thought of, I can't sit still in my meditation. And we are not the thought of, you should be able to sit still in your meditation. I'm not going to move again. I'm going to see, there's a question down here, and I'll see if it relates to this. Yes, I think, Jan, you said that awareness assumes the limitations of the conditioned mind in order to know the world. Is there a way to know the world other than the conditioned mind? What does it mean to know the world? Thank you, Jan. You know, in some traditions, another way to talk about the conditioned mind is simply small mind. So, or some people historically have spoken about big S with a capital S, big self with a capital S, and then small self with a lowercase s, to refer to the way in which the conditioned experience is a limitation of unlimited consciousness. So consciousness does have to limit itself. It does so freely. It limits itself in order to be in relationship with the world. Pure consciousness, vast, open, infinite awareness is by its nature unlimited. So just for the record, when we're talking, for example, in a mindfulness context about the conditioned mind, for example, introducing the concept of the conditioned mind to teenagers, the first way to talk about it that is the most simple, I don't speak in that context about the way in which the conditioned mind, I don't speak in these terms. I simplify it. I talk about how the conditioned mind is where all of our social conditioning lives. Of course, if this interests you or if this resonates with you from a Buddhist perspective, the conditioned mind would include karmas. It would include beyond this lifetime. It's not required to believe that, but I'm just bringing in other perspective in the same way I'm bringing in the perspective about consciousness in the context of this conversation. But the most simple way to speak about the conditioned mind to someone who's never thought about it before, we say in our first class with teens, you are not your thoughts. And you can often hear a pin drop because many young people have never considered that. So to talk about the conditioned mind simply as the place that this negative self-talk lives, the place where it's the mind of scarcity and the mind of limitation, the mind of lack, can be a helpful framing to make it really clear that that mind is different than the mind of awareness, if you will, or the experience of awareness. I actually don't usually refer to it as the mind of awareness. The experience of awareness, and that it is awareness itself that is aware of the conditioned mind. So in order to be in subject-object relationship, we have to identify with that mind of limitation to some degree. Awareness simply is the world. The world appears in this open, vast field of consciousness. It's not separate. Jan, I'd love to hear if that speaks to what you're looking at. I see another question. I realized during my exploration of the conditioned mind that it was responding to a person who is also a person responding from the conditioned mind. Can you address this, please? Alice, yes. First, I want to acknowledge when I say that awareness is the world, what I want to, we'll go here next week with the meditations because we're just at the beginning of this discussion about the nature of the conditioned mind. When I say awareness is the world, what I'm referring to is that consciousness is the material out of which the conditioned mind is made. It's the conditioned mind is arising in consciousness. It is made of consciousness. The conditioned mind is known by or recognized by consciousness. So that's why it's important to name that, because the conditioned mind isn't something we're trying to get rid of. Again, we're gonna go there more fully next week with our meditations. So this question of, I realized during my exploration of the conditioned mind that it was responding to a person who's also responding from a conditioned mind. Yes, so I like to talk about that as one aspect of the personality that arises in the conditioned mind is having a reaction to another aspect of the personality within the conditioned mind. Remember, this can seem complicated, but remember, all of these arisings are simply appearances or forms that are arising within the conditioned mind, within vast consciousness. We get stuck, as mentioned in the meditation, if we identify with that conditioned mind, if we say that is me. Notice, in the same way that in meditation, you've likely had experiences where you notice thought forms, but they don't stick. You simply notice them. You notice them from the experience of awareness. So as we come to the end of our time for today, that's what I invite you to sit with and have inquiry around over the weekend. Notice the experience of being identified with the conditioned mind. What is the result? And then notice, what is this conditioned mind appearing in? You might even ask, who am I in relationship to this conditioned mind? If you're on this call, you probably have some experience with meditation that leads you to know, oh, I am not this anxious thought arising about the virus, for example. You know how to disidentify from that thought. Or if you're new to practice, you at least know that's a possibility, and that's what's drawing you to practice. The recognition that it's a moment of liberation to recognize, I am not that conditioned fear. So what is that conditioned fear appearing to? Play with that over the weekend. Who am I in relationship to that conditioned fear? That's why this practice of labeling, that is the conditioned mind, the activity. The activity of the conditioned mind. There it is. What is it that recognizes that and that knows that? You all have given me much to reflect upon over the weekend regarding where to pick up on Monday. So thank you for that. I do hope you'll join Monday if you're able. And Veronica, you say, thank you. I had a hard time staying the course. Maybe you could type in if you mean, I'd be curious to know if you mean just staying with this conversation. And if so, yeah, do let me know, because I would like to be able to back it up and address questions next week so that we can come to shared understanding. Yeah. And I do see that there are more questions, and I'm going to copy and paste those questions to sit with them over the weekend. And that way next week we can bring them back in. So don't, Veronica, if you had a hard time staying with this conversation, no worries. We will absolutely do deeper exploration next week. This is the beginning of a conversation. So please take very good care of yourselves over the weekend. I will be holding this community, each of you, in my heart, and send many blessings as we continue to navigate this time of uncertainty. As a practice, coming back to the recognition of who we are again and again. Disidentifying. Returning to remembrance. And we'll touch in next week. Thank you.